Hello everyone, welcome to back my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. When the newest transformation photos hit social media, fans had to do double takes. The woman once defined by a nearly immovable body, chronic health crises, and years of public struggle now stands as one of reality television's most dramatic success stories. The star of 1,000-pound Sisters has revealed what many are calling the most shocking physical change in reality TV history, a staggering 500-pound weight loss that has completely redefined not just her appearance, but her entire life. These new images do more than show a slimmer figure. They capture freedom, they show strength, and they reflect a journey that was once thought impossible, even by doctors who treated her at her lowest point. This is not simply a before and after story. It is a decade-long saga of addiction, near-death experiences, family tension, grief, resilience, discipline, and ultimately, rebirth. From viral curiosity to public battle, long before the transformation became headline-worthy, her name was known online for very different reasons. Early viral videos portrayed a woman trapped by her weight, leaning heavily on family members for basic survival. What began as internet curiosity soon turned into something much bigger when a major network saw an opportunity to document a uniquely raw and emotionally charged story. That opportunity became the hit TLC series, which premiered with two sisters at its center, both morbidly obese, both living in rural Kentucky, and both locked in a complicated cycle of food addiction, emotional dependence, and mutual resentment. Viewers watched in disbelief as day-to-day life revolved around mobility scooters, oxygen tanks, and emergency room visits. At her heaviest, the star tipped the scale at over 700 pounds, a number so extreme that simply standing became dangerous. Daily life required constant assistance. Even basic personal hygiene was a challenge. Doctors warned repeatedly that without immediate and drastic intervention, death was not a distant risk, it was imminent. The emotional weight behind the physical weight. What many casual viewers failed to fully grasp in the early seasons was how deeply intertwined trauma and weight truly were. Food was never just food. It was comfort. It was escape. It was protection from overwhelming emotional wounds that stretched back to childhood. Decades of criticism, poverty, unstable family dynamics, and public humiliation built a psychological armor made of calories. Every binge was a coping strategy. Every gain on the scale was both a shield and a prison. As the seasons unfolded, it became painfully clear that surgery alone would never be enough. The fight had to be mental before it could be physical. Rock bottom. The near-death turning point. The true turning point came not in a doctor's office, but in a hospital emergency room. After contracting a severe respiratory infection, she was placed into a medically induced coma. Her lungs were failing. Her organs were under immense strain. Doctors delivered the kind of blunt warning few patients ever forget. She might not survive the night. For weeks, she remained in critical condition. Family members gathered with the grim understanding that they might be saying goodbye. Against overwhelming odds, she survived, but survival came with conditions. She was transferred to a long-term rehabilitation facility where life would become rigid, controlled, and stripped of old comforts. No delivery food. No late-night binges. No hiding from accountability. For the first time in her life, weight loss was no longer optional. It was mandatory for survival. Losing the first hundreds in rehab, confined to a strict medical diet and monitored exercise routine, the weight began to come off rapidly. The first 100 pounds disappeared within months. Then 200, then 300. But the more dramatic change wasn't happening on the scale, it was happening in her mindset. She began to talk openly about addiction. She acknowledged her emotional reliance on food. For the first time, she admitted that change terrified her just as much as death had. In therapy sessions broadcast on national television, viewers saw raw vulnerability replace defensive humor and sarcasm. As mobility slowly improved, so did confidence. She progressed from wheelchair to walker, from walker to unassisted steps. Each small milestone became a victory that once felt unimaginable. Qualifying for bariatric surgery. Even at hundreds of pounds down, she still weighed too much for surgery. Bariatric procedures carry high risks for patients with extreme obesity, and surgeons needed to be absolutely certain she could survive the operation and maintain results afterward. Months of consistent progress finally cleared that hurdle. When she was approved for surgery, it marked a symbolic crossing of a line, from survival to transformation. The procedure itself was not publicly detailed in full medical terms, but its impact was undeniable. Weight loss accelerated. Appetites changed. Portions shrank. For the first time, hunger was no longer the dominant force controlling every hour of the day. The psychological battle after surgery. Many assume surgery is the finish line. In reality, it is only the beginning. After bariatric surgery, the emotional struggles intensified. Without food as an emotional crutch, suppressed trauma surfaced with new intensity. Anxiety, anger, grief, loneliness. All emotions that had once been numbed by eating were now fully exposed. This period tested her more than any diet ever had. But unlike before, she stayed in therapy. She practiced accountability. She allowed herself to fail without quitting. Slowly, a new version of self-control replaced old patterns of self-destruction. The shocking 500-pound milestone. By the time the new transformation photos were taken, the number spoke louder than any therapy session or episode recap. 500 pounds gone. Let that sink in. That is the equivalent of 3 to 4 adult humans. An upright piano. A full-grown grizzly bear. This was no ordinary reality TV weight loss. This was a complete physiological reconstruction of a human body. The photos reveal a woman almost unrecognizable from her early seasons. Arms once buried in layers of adipose tissue now show shape. Facial features once obscured now appear defined. A waistline once unimaginable now exists. Even her posture has changed. Where she once leaned forward under the invisible weight of shame and physical burden, she now stands upright with evident confidence. Social media's explosive reaction. The internet, which once mocked her relentlessly, erupted with a very different tone. Comments flooded in by the thousands. I did not recognize her at first. This is one of the greatest transformations ever. I used to think she wouldn't survive, now look at her. Even longtime critics admitted they were stunned. The public narrative shifted almost overnight, from skepticism to awe. Of course, not all reactions were positive. Some questioned whether filters or angles were exaggerating results. Others warned that loose skin surgery would be the real testament. But even the harshest doubters couldn't ignore the sheer magnitude of change. Loose skin, the next physical hurdle. A 500-pound loss comes with a new set of challenges rarely discussed in celebratory posts. Excess skin. Large folds of skin can restrict movement, cause painful chafing, lead to chronic infections, severely impact body image. For many patients, reconstructive surgery becomes necessary not for vanity, but for mobility and health. These surgeries are complex, expensive, and often performed in multiple stages. The star has openly discussed the emotional conflict surrounding this next step, gratitude for a new life mixed with frustration at a body that still bears the scars of the old one. Reconstruction is not guaranteed to be covered by insurance. Public pressure, media attention, and network involvement may influence what becomes possible. Family dynamics after the transformation. Weight loss does not occur in a vacuum. It reshapes family dynamics in unexpected ways. For years, her family, especially her sister, Amy Slaton, played the role of caretaker, emotional anchor, and sometimes unintentional enabler. Their relationship was built around shared struggles, mutual dependence, and the comfort of being in it together. Now, roles have shifted. Independence has replaced reliance. Confidence has replaced insecurity. And while the sisters remain bonded by love, the balance between them is undeniably different. Jealousy, pride, fear, and admiration now coexist in complex ways. Some family members have expressed concern that fame and rapid change could bring new emotional risks. Others celebrate the transformation as nothing short of a miracle. Dating, desirability, and a new identity. Perhaps the most delicate subject emerging from this new chapter is romance. For most of her life, she believed love was something reserved for other people. Intimacy felt unreachable. Desire felt forbidden. The idea of being physically attractive seemed fictional. Now, those long-held beliefs are being challenged in real time. Public attention has increased. Compliments arrive daily. For the first time, she is navigating dating from a place of choice rather than desperation. But that shift brings its own vulnerabilities. Learning how to trust without fear of being fetishized. Differentiating genuine affection from curiosity. Reconciling a lifelong self-image shaped by ridicule with a present shaped by praise. It is emotional whiplash. And it is happening under the scrutiny of millions. Fame, pressure, and the fear of regain. With success comes a terrifying shadow, the fear of regression. Weight regain is statistically common after massive loss. Even a 10 to 15% regain can feel psychologically devastating to someone who has fought for every single pound lost. Every indulgence now carries emotional weight. Every plateau sparks panic. Every fluctuation invites public commentary. Unlike private patients, her body is no longer solely her own. It is a public narrative, dissected weekly by fans and critics alike. This pressure can either fuel discipline or trigger relapse. Maintaining balance is now the greatest challenge of all. The medical reality behind the miracle. Behind the inspiring photos lies a brutal truth. Bodies that once carried extreme obesity are permanently altered. Even after massive loss, metabolic rates may remain lower. Arthritis damage can be irreversible. Internal organs often show long-term strain. Doctors emphasize that her success is not simply cosmetic. It represents reduced cardiovascular strain, improved oxygen saturation, lower risk of stroke and heart attack, increased life expectancy by decades, but it also requires lifelong medical monitoring, nutrient supplementation, dietary restrictions, regular blood work, mental health maintenance. The transformation is not a finish line. It is a lifelong contract with vigilance. Why this transformation resonates so deeply. This story captivates the public for one simple reason. It challenges what many people believe is possible. A 500-pound loss is not supposed to happen. A woman once deemed terminal is not supposed to rebuild her life. Someone raised in cycles of poverty, addiction, and dysfunction is not supposed to break free. Yet here she stands. Her journey mirrors the internal battles of millions who struggle with food, trauma, self-worth, and addiction, but in an extreme, magnified form. Viewers don't just see weight loss. They see hope for their own impossibilities. How reality TV changed the outcome. Without cameras, producers, and a network behind her, it is unlikely this journey would have unfolded in the same way. The structure, accountability, medical access, and financial resources attached to the show created conditions that few private individuals ever receive. But exposure alone is not enough. Many reality stars fade, relapse, or self-destruct under pressure. What distinguishes her story is not the platform, it is the persistence. The network that brought her journey into living rooms across the country, TLC, documented not only success, but years of failure, denial, and near-fatal complacency. That transparency is what makes the final transformation so powerful. Each scar tells a story. Look closely at the new photos, and you will see more than a smaller body. You will see surgical scars, areas of loose skin, subtle signs of physical history. These marks are not imperfections. They are proof of survival. For someone who once could not fit into standard hospital equipment, who once risked suffocating in her own bed. These scars symbolize life reclaimed from the brink of death. What the future holds. Speculation now surrounds what's next. Additional skin removal surgeries. Expanded role on the show. Advocacy for obesity awareness. Motivational speaking. Possible memoir opportunities. The future is wide open in a way it never was before. But perhaps the deepest victory is quieter than fame or money. It is the simple freedom to walk unassisted, breathe without oxygen, travel without special accommodations, sit in public spaces without fear of judgment. These are freedoms most people never think about. For her, they represent a new identity entirely. The symbolism of the transformation photos. The transformation photos are not just physical comparisons. They are visual timestamps of survival. Where once there was immobility, now there is movement. Where once there was despair, now there is potential. Where once there was a woman resigned to an early death, now there is someone planning a future. Each photo holds within it thousands of unseen moments. Tears in therapy sessions. Hunger endured through discipline. Setbacks followed by resolve. Days when quitting felt easier than continuing. They are not just images. They are evidence. Critics, doubters, and the right to be imperfect. Even in triumph, the criticism hasn't disappeared. Some insist the journey was too assisted. Others argue she only succeeded because of television money. A few still predict inevitable failure. But none of that negates the truth. Losing 500 pounds requires relentless daily commitment regardless of resources. Surgery alone does not force someone to walk instead of sit, eat measured meals instead of binge, or face trauma instead of escaping it. Perfection was never the goal. Survival was. A new chapter written in strength, not shame. For most of her life, shame wrote the story. Shame of size. Shame of dependence. Shame of failure. The new photos rewrite that narrative. They show a woman no longer apologizing for existing, no longer hiding behind sarcasm, no longer shrinking emotionally while physically expanding. Instead, they show someone stepping forward, literally and figuratively, into a life that once felt unreachable. More than a body, a reclaimed life. A 500-pound weight loss is a medical marvel, a psychological triumph, a social awakening, a personal resurrection. But perhaps its greatest significance lies in what it represents to others. Proof that even the most entrenched patterns can be broken, that the most damaged self-image can be reshaped, and that even when change seems impossible, it is still possible. The transformation is not just etched in flesh, it is etched in identity. And this time, the story is not about surviving another year. It is about finally living one,